Well, we don't call it rank punditry for nothing here on the New Hampshire Journal podcast, and this has to be the rankest group we've put together. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the lovely and talented Michael Dennehy, GOP strategist extraordinaire. Mr. Dennehy.
Good morning, Mr. Graham.
And he's there and we can see him, Patrick Hynes. Mr. Hynes, how are you?
My third and fourth favorite Michaels.
Exactly.
Michael Graham and Michael Dennehy.
Of course, the first one has a new movie coming out. We don't want to talk about why Hainsey is stuck with it. Hey, when did you get the nickname Hainsey? Because I keep telling people I'm doing something with Patrick Hynes, going to be Patrick Hynes, and they look at me confused and they go, "Oh, you mean Hainsey?"
Okay, but before you answer that, Michael,
Yes.
you have to know my son Liam, he's the one with Down syndrome. He actually calls him Hainsey.
No way.
It's great. He actually calls him Uncle Hainsey.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrific.
I've been Hainsey since high school.
Really?
Yes, since the gridiron, since my days on the gridiron, Michael.
They called the water boy Hainsey?
I left blood and sweat on the field of
Right.
Laconia High School.
So it all came from
They called him
football.
Hainsey because when they were, in the 3-point stance, he kept getting really too close to their Hines. And so
Listen, there's a lot of other nicknames we could get into when it comes to
Exactly. Listen. I want to let everyone know right up front. We're going to do some rank punditry early. Then we're going to get to the real reason I invited you two ne'er-do-wells, you two troublemakers to the podcast. You guys created New Hampshire Journal, and I now run the thing, and I don't even know the story of how New Hampshire Journal happened. So we're going to share that, but let's start where we are, big picture. There were some new numbers out this week that showed that on every issue, including the economy, Republicans are underwater with Democrats across the country. There are polls that put Trump's approval rating in the 30s. And Cook Political did a poll of just the congressional races that they rank as either toss-ups or leans, which means nothing in New Hampshire because every here is likely down. And in those toss-up and leans, the average Democrat advantage is +6. So, Michael Dennehy, how are things looking for New Hampshire Republicans this coming November?
All I can say, Michael, is fake news. Look, I mean, I think you and I have talked about this too. Two things. First, let me start with the good news, is that regardless of that, the election's several months away, and we will have the strongest Republican at the top of our ticket who will do very well, and that's Governor Kelly Ayotte. So that will hopefully, and I believe historically has, help the rest of the ticket regardless of the national environment. Of course, the question is, will the national environment change to get a little more, I guess, even? And how much will a strong Kelly Ayotte be able to help the rest of the ticket?
So before we get to the individual races, Patrick Hynes, how is it looking for New Hampshire Republicans this November?
Look, right now it's an uphill climb, but the election's not today. Mike hit it on the head with Governor Ayotte, but I'd also factor in John Sununu for U.S. Senate. Mm-hmm. He's going to be the nominee regardless of what Scott Brown says. So you've got conceivably the best top of the ticket that you could ask for. You've got a popular and successful Governor Ayotte running for re-election, and you've got a good Sununu. I mean, they're all good, but this is a particularly good Sununu, who was a great U.S. Senator running for Senate. So, yes, it's going to be an uphill fight, but we've got a great ticket.
I just, on that note, and again, Michael, I think we may have talked about this. I can't remember, but in 1992, it was an awful year for Republicans. We're old, so some people may not remember that. But Steve Merrill, running for his first term for governor, he got 56% of the vote and was able to literally drag across Judd Gregg the finish line to beat John Rao for U.S. Senate. So it can happen. And so that was a 6-point. Does that mean Kelly Ayotte needs 6 points to help? Judd Gregg was always a strong candidate. It was just a bad year. Johnny Sununu is a great candidate. So it can happen. It just really, again, depends on where we're at from a national environment.
You're both wrong. It can't happen, but that's fine. Whatever. I knew you were going to come in and do your puffery, and that's fine. In 2018, Chris Sununu running against the forgettable. I bet you don't even know who he ran against. You don't remember who in 2018 ran for governor? Who's the Democratic nominee?
Yeah, it was Feltus.
Nope, no, that was 2020.
That was 2020.
Molly Kelly, the unforgettable, the invisible woman.
Oh, Molly,
and
no,
we still lost
for some reason I thought that was 2016. It was Van Osten.
We still lost. Republicans still lost the state house. They still lost the state senate. It was still the 3-2 on the executive council. And that was 2018 before New Hampshire really hated Donald Trump the way they hate him now. My question is about the tactical part, what we're likely to see. There's been a lot of talk. You're going to see a $250 million race for U.S. Senate in New Hampshire. I think that's nonsense. It's nonsense because there's too many other races. Yeah. North Carolina is already done. Republicans are going to lose. Maine, oh my gosh, Susan Collins is the only person who can win that. We don't know. Ohio, definitely on the cusp. You could lose Iowa on the cusp, Alaska on the cusp. There it is. There's Senate in the hands of the Democrats. Mm-hmm. The NRSC is not going to spend money in a state that does not elect federal Republicans when they have all these other races. Patrick Hainsey, what am I getting wrong?
What you're getting wrong is that decision hasn't been made yet. I know that you're not wrong. You're just not wrong yet.
A great line.
Yeah,
that's a great line. By the way, my wife would just skip to the "you're wrong." She would not give me the yet. It would just be, even if you're not wrong right now, you're going to be wrong. So I'm telling you, you're wrong.
Look, I've been part of these kinds of decisions, usually on the receiving end or the business end, but they get made with the coldest of calculations.
Exactly.
And the truth of the matter is, we just don't know what's going to be close right now. Right now, we don't know what's going to be close, and we don't know what's going to be completely unwinnable. There's going to be a lot of money. It's going to get spent. I think Johnny Sununu is going to be very, very close with Chris Pappas when the time comes to start cutting checks, figuratively speaking, and he's going to be in the conversation. And I think this will be a competitive race. I hear what you're saying about the New England hasn't elected a whole lot of federal Republicans, and we have one we have to defend in Maine, but we just don't know what everything's going to look like right now.
$250 million race, Michael Dennehy. What do you think?
Yeah, I still think it's a possibility that Sununu remains on that list for the reasons we've already discussed. And I do think it's important to note we have not had a Sununu running for Senate since he lost the race. So I do think all of those factors will come into play. And I do think there's a chance that they will spend the money in New Hampshire. But like Patrick said, it just all comes down to where things are across the country.
Anything interesting happening in the congressional districts, the congressional races?
Nothing that I can see as of yet. It's been super quiet. It's non-existent.
Okay, I got to ask. I'm the dummy. I was a minor campaign flack, back in the day. I was never a big time James Carville guy, whatever. I just ran my little state house races and U.S. Senate races, whatever. Why isn't someone doing something? It seems to me like the land is none of the in the primaries, the Democratic primary, first congressional district. Everyone, it's just going to be Stephanie Shaheen. Maybe, but no one is. What's the Tyson line about? Everyone has a plan till you get hit in the face. No one has, and I mean this entirely politically, metaphorically, hit her in the face. I don't want violence, but what I'm saying? No one has challenged her campaign. Maura Sullivan has money. Christian Rucher is a smart guy. Heath Howard is progressive. They're all knows how to make noise, and yet nothing. Same on the Republican side. Anthony DiLorenzo has a lot of money, but so Holly Noblesky isn't living out of a cardboard box. Brian Cole's a state rep. He's got some money. Yep. It seems to me like everyone's waiting for something to happen instead of doing what I would have done, which is let's go do something and at least see if someone has a glass jaw. Am I the idiot here?
Patrick and I have talked about this too. First and foremost, I really don't believe campaigns have plans anymore. And I think that's a huge misstep by any campaign today
Right.
like they used to. So no one is designing, creating a campaign plan, and then implementing it and
Right.
following it. Secondly, Michael Graham, holy cow! I mean, why Anthony DiLorenzo wouldn't have dropped $500,000 minimum on TV to win the race right off the bat is beyond me. I don't understand it. I can't for the life of me understand why he would let this continue for so long. A huge weakness I don't get. I think all of the candidates have some good advantages. Each one has some,
Right.
but there's nothing happening. They just don't seem to be implementing any kind of campaign strategy.
I couldn't
Really,
agree more about
by the way, the same can go for the Democrats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not picking on
could-
anybody by. I want to be clear for people who watch this. We're fans of politics. We're in the stands.
Yeah.
We want a game. We want to see a well-executed game. Even if the other team is executing well, we'll get thumbs up. Way to go.
Yeah.
But Hainsey, where's the game?
There is no
It's like
game.
you wait for them to come out of the locker room. It's like, dude, it's halftime.
I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more with what Mike just said about the DiLorenzo campaign. I don't get it. I don't understand it. You have one competitive advantage over everybody else, and you're hiding from it. You're hiding from it by filing this personal financial disclosure form that shows you're only worth about $1 to $5 million, which is not true, and everyone knows it's not true. And then by not spending the money, when you could stake a claim, nobody has any name ID. You could jump way out ahead in the polls in this circumstance by boosting your name ID. All of it would be positive anyway, because you're going to do bio ads, and I love America, and I love my family, and
That's
I
right.
love business. And so you'd have a very good favorable rating going into the summer, milk it until you need to, and then you win the primary. And then you enter the general election with a really decent image rating against probably Stephanie Shaheen, who was born with a good image rating. And so why people aren't going, when I first started doing this stuff, we were told you got to start defining people. You've got to define the race through a contrast. Doesn't have to be negative campaigning from the get-go, but this is the pro-tax Republican, I'm the anti-tax Republican, or this is and we just disagree on this. And that none of that happens anymore. Everybody waits until the last 6 weeks of the campaign and tries to sneak attack somebody with these over-the-top negative attacks that are usually either not true or not believable.
Right.
And even if they're true, it's just, if it's too cockamamie, people aren't going to buy it. And you end up looking like a bad person. There's a backsplash.
Also, what can you say in the era of Trump that's going to disqualify your opponent? It's the era of Trump. It's the era of Mondami. Oh yeah, sure. I'm a communist who thinks that Hamas has some good points, but doesn't mean I can't be your mayor. And like, okay, so I mean, unless you've got video of your opponent performing cannibalism, you're just, it's not going to happen. I want to get to one more race, then we're going to get to the fun part, and that is Cindy Warmington allegedly running for governor. I mean, I can't confirm. She hasn't filed any paperwork, haven't had the filing period yet. I've yet to see her do anything that you would do if you're running for governor. And I don't understand it. You said, Michael Dennehy, that, Kelly Ayotte's a super strong candidate. I completely disagree. She's a good candidate, but we're just in an era where Republicans in New England, with Donald Trump at the top of the ticket, you have a weight. You're carrying this 200-pound backpack. And so that's why her approval rating rarely hits 50%. It's not because Ayotte's not good. It's because she's got this compression. And yet the Democrats seem content to not really run anyone against her. Am I missing something?
Well, I think you're missing a lot of things. First of all, Kelly Ayotte is a good candidate. Secondly, and maybe most importantly, she is the single best fundraiser any Republican candidate in New Hampshire has been in the last 20, 30 years. There's no one better than Kelly Ayotte. And that's what I think the Democrats are probably most afraid of. They know they won't be able to compete with her on money. It won't even be close. But on top of that, though, Kelly really is a great campaigner. And so I think when you put those two together, regardless of the national environment, you've got a super strong candidate.
Hainsey?
Mr. Graham, there's a fascinating column in the New Hampshire Union Leader this weekend about this very subject, about Cindy Warmington, and how the Democrats are probably wishing that they had not cleared the field for her, particularly in light of a story that was broken both on WMUR and NH Journal, that she knew full well how dangerously addictive OxyContin was when she was testifying about how it was a miracle drug. So this mythology that she's trying to perpetuate, that no one knew anything. I was just trying to help people. That's absurd. It was absurd at the time, and it's been exposed. And I've got to think, I mean, Declan McKeckern decided not to run. I think he would have a hard time running for governor as the mayor of the most expensive and least affordable city in the country, or in the state. Nevertheless, he would be a lot better than an opioid lobbyist who's lying about her motivations.
Totally agree.
Well, the problem for Cindy Warmington is that she can't get the conversation to move away from opioid lobbyists. Right. She keeps feeding it by addressing it and trying to accuse Kelly Ayotte of being worse because, pharma gave money to her Senate campaigns in the past. I'm like, stop digging. Just stop digging. Climb out of the hole. Exactly go find a new hole. Just even if you're going to go backwards, go backwards somewhere else, because this is terrible. Hole. Okay. Yeah. So it was a dark and stormy night. There you were. You're in a ditch sharing needles as you try to make the last little bit of your heroin last to get you through the hump. And someone says New Hampshire Journal. Do I have approximate? Is that ballpark how it happened?
Close.
Oh,
okay.
Boy, I don't know if there's enough time for it, but Patrick, I think that you should.
Well, in order to understand New Hampshire Journal, you have to understand what came before it, and that's Now Hampshire. So
what was Now Hampshire?
So Now Hampshire was a site that I started with Mike and our friend Sean, and we did a lot of the same stuff. There was a lot of news that the press didn't feel like covering.
Right.
And it was nevertheless important news. And in fact, we're the ones who broke the story that Carol Shea-Porter had been forcibly removed by the police from a George Bush town hall. Right. She ran around the state saying it's a lie, it's a damn lie. I never wore a waffle hat at a Portsmouth City Council event. We proved it all, and we exposed her as being completely. But
you mean you elected her to the United States Congress in 2006 is what you're trying to say?
No, we got rid of her. We contributed to getting rid of her in 2010. But more importantly, to say that we posted sporadically would be fair. We had jobs. We didn't get to post every day, and so we wanted to professionalize it and get a little bit more mainstream, and still cover stuff that the press wasn't covering. So we got together. It was Mike and I, our good friend Dave Carney and James McKay, and then Sean and Jane Millerick. And we started NHJournal. We all pulled in some resources, and we started the site that looked very much then like it does now. I think you've made some improvements on it, but it's been, it was same color scheme, same general format. And we started pushing stories that the press wasn't covering again. And one of the things that happened that we found out about, because we're all heavily involved in Republican politics, is how poorly the state GOP was being run by a guy named Jack Kimball, who was the chairman at the time. And he was one of these guys who, I don't know if he's still around, but he's one of these guys who everybody's stupid except me. And nobody's done this right, and we're going to do it right, and we're going to use the party as a way to enforce the platform.
That's a crazy thing to be saying unless you're Michael Graham.
Right, exactly. The only person I know who's never been wrong,
exactly,
just ask him, is Michael Graham. and so he's running around trying to enforce the platform by saying, various state house members are rhinos and so forth. Republican members of the House are rhinos, which is not the job of the chairman. And he didn't raise a dime. And I think at one point in the operating account, there was like $1,500.
Yikes.
And we were talking to Republicans who some of whom even liked Jack Kimball, but they were like, this is terrible. The party is dying. And so to some criticism and to some chuckles, whenever we would do a story about how the party was in such bad shape, we would usually accompany it with a picture of a dead and sometimes decaying elephant. Um, it's possible that the pictures got increasingly more hard to look at.
Morbid,
Yeah.
disturbing. Is this Mike? Is he getting the story about right?
Yeah, oh, the story is absolutely right. Now that's just one piece of it, though. I think, frankly, the more interesting piece of New Hampshire Journal that really was groundbreaking, truly, for New Hampshire, is it. And Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong. New Hampshire Journal was the first aggregator of news that sent out a daily email.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Yeah.
So that's what New Hampshire Journal was the first one. I don't remember whose idea that was. It wasn't mine. It might have been Carney's. It was great, and that's what really set us apart and started. In addition to the innovative news stories, it really started gaining traction.
Did you get rid of Kimball? Yes, he ended up. I think he stepped down, didn't he, Mike? Yeah, he stepped down, and I don't know. I don't even remember who replaced him. But
I don't either.
And what is one of your favorite? What is one of your favorite innovative stories from back in the early days, Mr. Hynes or Mr. Dennehy?
So I don't remember the exact story, but I do remember that the executive council of the Republican State Committee, we did not have it bugged, but thought that we must have had the NHJournal must have had the state party office bugged because we had so much information about what was going on and going so badly that that we had to have electronic surveillance equipment on the inside. And that's not true. We just had regular people who were happy to talk to us because they were as frustrated as we were about what was going on with the party.
You, Mr. Dennehy, have a favorite?
I have my favorite part of New Hampshire Journal's, not much of a story, but about New Hampshire Journal is when we really took off, we pooled our resources, personal resources together to hire John DiStaso, who, as everyone knows, is a legend in New Hampshire politics as a news reporter. And our friends at the Union Leader had kept cutting his salary and benefits to a point where he just couldn't do it anymore. So we hired him to come be the first paid reporter for New Hampshire Journal. And that's what really took New Hampshire Journal to new heights.
So tell me about the DiStaso era. Like, what kind of stories were you covering? What was the response, et cetera? How'd it go?
He brought his column over, which was always the most widely read news column in New Hampshire. And then Patrick, if I remember correctly, God rest his soul, by the way, wonderful, wonderful human being, John DiStaso. He did the usual. He did his State House stories, did political stories, and did his weekly column.
And the vehicle that we paid him, this was known because it was reported, was through our company, my company.
Right.
It wasn't just my resources, but that's how we did it. And this is you'll like this, Michael, because you worked on campaigns and Dennehy knows this too. But when we would get a call from John DiStaso, either you'd see him on caller ID or somebody would say, "Hey, it's John DiStaso on the line," you'd pucker up just a little bit because you don't know, did I get caught in a lie? Does he have opposition research on my opponent? Like there's, John DiStaso was calling you because they had something and he wanted to talk about it. And so at this point, he's no longer working at the New Hampshire Union Leader. He's working for me.
Right.
And he would call me. And when he would call me, I still would reflexively pucker up.
Exactly.
And what did I do now? Did I get caught in another lie?
Sure.
And so that was funny. But the other thing that was really interesting is it's quaint when you go back and you look at the old articles about us hiring John.
Right.
And about what we were doing with NHJournal. We're talking 2010, 2011, 2012. Molly Ball from Politico and Hadass Gold from, I think, also Politico. Wow. A couple of these reporters really sort of were clutching their pearls over what we were doing, and how could this happen that Republican operatives and consultants are forming a news company. This isn't right. I mean, how charming to think that news wouldn't have a perspective. Like, give me a break. But so I dealt with that a lot of personal attacks from some of your friends, Kathy Sullivan, for example, who accused me of all manner of shenanigans.
We're very tight.
But Kathy and I are very tight.
You're a good buddy.
Very tight. So did I assume DiStaso wasn't getting thrown out of event? What did I start the trend of New Hampshire Journal getting thrown out of political events, or had that already happened? But
he lost some Democratic friends because of it, for sure.
Sure.
And it wounded him.
But would they at least have let him cover their stuff?
Yes,
that's
for
my
sure.
question. Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah. No, it's with you. It's personal. The reason they don't let you in is because of your person. They don't like you personally.
I understand that completely. So what is your guys' favorite moment? Like, what was there? Was there like yes, this is the New Hampshire Journal, let's go? Was there a?
Well, I think the first one was getting Jack Kimball to step down. The second one was bringing on John DiStaso and doing major coverage of the 2012 primary. In terms of a big developing story, I'm
or a troublemaking one, like one that you just like personally like.
Think about that, Patrick. I'll tell you what I thought was a really important milestone was when the union leader contacted, was it you, Patrick, and said and started complaining that we were not appropriately linking to them.
Okay.
Because that's when right? When you're making headway, when the statewide newspaper starts complaining about what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good sign, but but there's just so much fun to be had in politics if you're willing to cover the fun. When our freelancer was arrested outside Governor Sununu's house because he was trying to cover the loiters, and they threw him in jail with them. And then the last guy they dropped the charges against was our freelancer. And then we wrote the story of how Sununu's brother was part of the scam to put this illegal law in place because Sununu's wife was just so annoyed that these people That's fun. I'm sorry. I mean, nothing against Governor Sununu, great guy, but we loved covering that story. Mark Brave, Sheriff Mark Brave. How can you not have fun covering the story of the sheriff going up and down the coast with these smoking hotties, inventing a sheriff's organization that doesn't exist, that no one will check because it was a race-based fake sheriff's group and no one wanted to look into. How can you not? Tim Magoo, I mean, come on. How do you not have fun when senators are being thrown out of their own caucus? Doesn't matter if he's a Republican, it's fun.
And what's really interesting about that, and I will not remember the names, Michael, but one of the things that we did, it's commonplace now, and nobody resigns anymore because, like you say, it's the Trump era, and the bar of what's ridiculous is so high. But when you have a 400-member House, and a lot of these people are unvetted, and they just win because there's a wave, you get some real beauties, right? And so, a lot of them would say like absolutely nutty things, and we would just cover it. We would find out about it, and we would cover it, and we would, and they would end up stepping down. And it happened, I would say 3 or 4 times. The Democratic members of the House stepped down because it just they were just being completely crazy. Also, one of the great stories about Jack Kimball that we had was he was on a group text thread, and we had a friend we had a source who was on that text thread. And he was talking about how he's received reports that white trucks and tanks were coming down from Maine into New Hampshire. They're UN military, and they are invading New Hampshire. This is the sitting chairman of the New Hampshire Republican State Committee talking about how the United Nations is through Maine invading New Hampshire. And so we did a story on it, and it went viral. The Huffington Post did a big, which was huge at the time.
Exactly.
Was enormous, all the traffic. Did a big story on it, crediting us. and that story definitely went viral, and it was a hoot because it was just absolutely bananas. But how could you just ignore that? Like, I know that it's ridiculous, the story, but how could regular, quote unquote, real mainstream journalists ignore a story like that, where a prominent Republican leader is fantasizing about a UN invasion of New Hampshire?
Look, the reason they can't cover it is because the squids that they injected with COVID were activated by the 5G in Bedford, and it caused their brains to cloud.
I love
so
it.
they missed that story.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
Just keep it going.
My final thought is, I think it's great that you brought back this kind of column, Monday Morning Memo.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. It brings back a new, or it adds a nice element to to New Hampshire Journal.
Well, look, it can always be better. We're still experimenting with it. So if you have any ideas, you obviously send them in, and same to the listeners and viewers, send them in. And we're easy to reach. news@insidesources.com is our general email, news@insidesources.com. And New Hampshire Journal exists because somehow some guy you were able to con Sean McCoy into buying this thing.
Yeah.
And then he tried to do boring journalism, and that didn't work. And then I happened to be in New England, and next thing I know, I'm here, and the rest is history. So I'm going to run this sucker into the ground, baby. Thanks to you guys and your help. Michael Dennehy and Patrick Hynes, thanks for joining us here on the New Hampshire Journal podcast.
Thanks a lot,
Michael.